Listen, champions, while the world obsesses over the loudest voices and the flashiest moves, there's a nation quietly executing the most brilliant strategy I've ever witnessed. That nation is Canada. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is about hockey or maple syrup, let me tell you something. Canada is playing a game so sophisticated, so perfectly calculated, that it's leaving superpowers scratching their heads wondering how they got outmaneuvered by the neighbor they never took seriously. You want to know what real power looks like? It's not the guy screaming in the gym about how much he can lift. It's the disciplined athlete who shows up every single day, perfects his form, builds his strength methodically, and then quietly breaks every record while others are still talking. That's Canada. In a world where nations are throwing tantrums, making noise, and burning bridges faster than they can build them, Canada has been following a playbook that would make any champion proud. They've mastered something most countries never learn, that true victory isn't about winning today's headlines. It's about positioning yourself to dominate tomorrow's game. While others exhaust themselves in short-term battles, Canada has been preparing for the long war. And now as global power shifts and old alliances crumble, Canada isn't just surviving the chaos, it's thriving in it. But how? How does a nation execute strategy with the precision of a world-class bodybuilder and the patience of a chess grandmaster? Let me break it down for you. You know what separates champions from wannabes? It's not talent, it's not luck. It's the ability to think beyond the moment, to see the bigger picture when everyone else is focused on instant gratification. Canada has this mindset burned into its national DNA, and it's exactly what I learned building my empire from Austria to Hollywood to California's governor's mansion. When I first arrived in America, everyone told me my accent was too thick, my name was too difficult, my dreams were too big. Sound familiar? That's exactly what the world has been telling Canada for decades. You're too nice, too quiet, too cold, too small to matter in the big leagues. But here's what I learned and what Canada has mastered. The critics are always wrong about the ones who actually have a plan. While other nations were chasing immediate validation, getting caught up in the daily drama of international politics, Canada was doing what every true champion does. They were training in silence. They were building systems, strengthening institutions, and creating frameworks that would pay dividends not next month, but next decade. That takes discipline. That takes vision. That takes the kind of mental strength most countries simply don't possess. Look at how Canada approached the global financial crisis of 2008. While major economies were collapsing under the weight of reckless speculation and short-term thinking, Canada's banking system stood firm. Why? Because they had been building conservative, sustainable financial institutions for years. Not because it was popular, not because it got them headlines, but because it was right. They understood that true strength comes from preparation, not improvisation. This is the foundation principle that separates Canada from the pack. Strategic patience combined with relentless preparation. They don't react to every crisis like it's the end of the world. They respond with calculated precision because they've already war-gamed these scenarios. They've already built the muscle memory needed to handle pressure. And just like in bodybuilding, where the real growth happens during rest and recovery, Canada's power has been growing strongest during the moments when the world wasn't watching. While others were flexing for the cameras, Canada was in the gym, perfecting its form, building the kind of strength that lasts. Here's something I learned early in my career. It doesn't matter how strong you are individually if you're standing alone. The strongest man in the world can't move mountains by himself, but give him the right team, the right connections, the right network, and suddenly the impossible becomes inevitable. Canada figured this out before anyone else, and they've been building the most sophisticated alliance network on the planet. While other superpowers were flexing their military might and demanding submission, Canada took a completely different approach. They became the nation everyone actually wants to work with. Think about that for a moment. When was the last time you heard someone say, "We need to be careful about Canada's aggressive expansion"? Never. Because Canada doesn't expand through conquest. They expand through connection. They've mastered what I call the magnetic strategy. Instead of pushing their way into rooms, they make themselves so valuable, so reliable, so genuinely helpful that other nations pull them into conversations. They're not the loudest voice at the international table, but they're often the most listened to. Why? Because when Canada speaks, other nations know they're about to hear solutions, not problems. Look at their trade relationships. While other countries were starting trade wars and burning economic bridges, Canada was quietly diversifying its partnerships across every continent. They understood that in a connected world, isolation is suicide. So they built relationships not just with traditional allies, but with emerging markets, developing nations, and future superpowers. They planted seeds everywhere, and now those seeds are growing into mighty economic trees. But here's the brilliant part. These aren't just transactional relationships. Canada has built genuine trust. And trust, my friends, is the ultimate currency in internet. Ional relations. You can buy cooperation with money or force it with weapons, but trust, real trust, can only be earned through consistency, reliability, and character. And Canada has been earning that trust for decades. They've become the Switzerland of North America, but with more resources and better positioning. Nations come to Canada not just for natural resources, but for mediation, for stability, for partnership opportunities that don't come with hidden agendas or ultimatums. They've created a brand that says, work with us and you'll get exactly what we promise, exactly when we promise it. This network effect is now paying massive dividends. When global supply chains shifted, Canada's diverse partnerships protected them. When traditional alliances became strained, Canada's relationships provided alternatives. They built redundancy into their international strategy the same way a smart investor builds diversification into their portfolio. You know what I love about true champions? They don't just rely on natural gifts. They maximize every advantage they have while building new ones. Canada was blessed with incredible natural resources, but here's what separates them from every other resource-rich nation. They didn't just dig it up and sell it off. They turned their natural wealth into strategic leverage and long-term power. Most countries with natural resources fall into what economists call the resource curse. They become lazy, dependent on commodity exports, vulnerable to price swings and market manipulation. Not Canada. They looked at their oil, their minerals, their vast agricultural lands, their fresh water, and they asked the right question. How do we turn these assets into permanent advantages? Here's something that took me years to understand. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. When I was young and hungry, I thought power meant being the loudest guy in the room, the one everyone noticed first. But as I grew and achieved real success, I learned that true power is quiet, confident, and undeniable. Canada has mastered this principle better than any nation I've ever studied. While other countries are constantly beating their chests, making threats, demanding attention, Canada operates with a quiet confidence that's absolutely devastating to competitors. They don't need to tell the world how important they are. The world already knows. They don't need to make noise to get respect. They earn it through results. Look at their approach to international crises. When tensions escalate and other nations start rattling sabers, Canada doesn't join the shouting match. They become the voice of reason, the steady hand, the nation others turn to when they need someone who can actually solve problems instead of creating more drama. That's not weakness, that's strategic brilliance. This quiet confidence shows up everywhere, in their cities, which consistently rank among the world's most livable without needing massive PR campaigns. In their education system, which produces world-class talent without constant self-promotion. In their healthcare system, which delivers results without the political theater that consumes other nations. But don't mistake this quietness for passivity. Behind the scenes, Canada is executing moves that would make a chess grandmaster jealous. They're attracting global talent at unprecedented rates. Why? Because the world's smartest people recognize quality when they see it. They're becoming the headquarters of choice for international organizations, tech companies, and innovative industries. The most successful people I know share this trait. They let their work speak for itself. They don't waste energy on publicity stunts or attention-seeking behavior. They focus on excellence, on results, on building something that lasts. And that's exactly what Canada has been doing on a national scale. Their immigration system is a perfect example. Instead of building walls or creating drama, they quietly built the world's most effective system for attracting and integrating global talent. Now, the world's best and brightest are choosing Canada, not because of flashy marketing campaigns, but because Canada delivers on its promises. This quiet dominance is perhaps their most powerful weapon because it's completely underestimated by louder, more aggressive competitors. While others exhaust themselves in publicity battles and political theater, Canada conserves its energy for actual achievement. And achievement sustained over time is what builds lasting power. Here's something most people don't understand about power. In the long run, the strongest foundation isn't military might or economic leverage, it's moral authority. And Canada has turned its values into the most sophisticated strategic weapon system I've ever witnessed. They've proven that you don't have to sacrifice your principles to dominate. In fact, your principles can become your greatest competitive advantage. In a world where corruption, authoritarianism, and moral compromise seem to be spreading everywhere, Canada stands as proof that integrity isn't just nice to have, it's essential for sustainable success. Their commitment to freedom, justice, equality, and human rights isn't just political rhetoric, it's a strategic choice that's paying massive dividends. Think about it from a business perspective. If you're a multinational corporation looking to expand, where do you want to invest? In a country where the rules change based on political whims, where corruption might undermine your investments, where human rights violations could damage your brand, or in a country where the rule of law is predictable, where institutions are stable, where your employees and customers will be treated with dignity and respect? The answer is obvious, and that's why global capital is flowing toward Canada at unprecedented rates. Their values aren't just morally right, they're economically magnetic. Companies know that when they build in Canada, they're building on solid ground. But here's where it gets really strategic. Canada's moral authority gives them influence that military power alone could never achieve. When Canada speaks on international issues, people listen not because they're afraid of Canadian tanks, but because they respect Canadian judgment. That's soft power at its most effective. Their approach to diversity and inclusion is another masterclass in turning values into competitive advantage. While other nations are tearing themselves apart over cultural differences, Canada has created a system that actually harnesses diversity as a source of strength. They've figured out how to make people from completely different backgrounds feel genuinely Canadian while maintaining their cultural identities. This isn't just feel-good policy, it's strategic genius. In a globalized world, the nations that can successfully integrate different cultures, languages, and perspectives will have enormous advantages in international business, diplomacy, and innovation. Canada is building that capability into their national DNA. Their commitment to environmental stewardship is another example of values creating strategic advantage. While other nations must treat environmental protection as a cost of doing business, Canada has positioned itself as a leader in sustainable development. As the world increasingly demands environmental responsibility, Canada's early investments in clean technology and sustainable practices are becoming major competitive advantages. So when people ask me, how is Canada winning the game? I tell them this: they're not just winning with tactics, they're winning with wisdom. They've understood something that most nations miss completely, that the ultimate victory isn't conquering others, it's making others want to join your team. You see, I've studied champions my entire life. I've been one, I've trained them, I've watched them rise and fall, and there's one universal truth that separates the legends from the forgotten. Sustainable dominance never comes from destruction. It comes from construction. It comes from building something so powerful, so attractive, so undeniably superior that competition becomes irrelevant. Canada has built something extraordinary, a nation that grows stronger not by defeating enemies, but by creating allies, not by taking resources from others, but by maximizing their own, not by forcing respect, but by earning it through consistent excellence. That's not just smart strategy, that's championship thinking at the highest level. Think about it like bodybuilding. Anyone can tear down muscle tissue in the gym, but champions understand that the real growth happens during recovery, during the patient building phase, during the times when nobody's watching. Canada has been in that building phase for decades. While other nations were flexing for the cameras, showing off their short-term strength, Canada was methodically developing every muscle, every system, every capability they would need for long-term dominance. And just like in bodybuilding, the results are becoming undeniable. While other nations exhaust themselves in endless conflicts, Canada conserves its energy for building, creating, and improving. While others burn bridges, Canada builds them. While others demand loyalty through fear, Canada inspires it through example. And now, as the global order reshapes itself, Canada isn't scrambling to adapt. They're perfectly positioned to lead. The evidence is everywhere you look. Global investors are choosing Canada. International students are choosing Canada. The world's most innovative companies are choosing Canada. Families seeking better futures are choosing Canada. This isn't happening by accident. This is happening because Canada has created a comprehensive ecosystem of success that attracts excellence like a magnet. But here's what really impresses me. And remember, I've seen success at every level, from Hollywood to politics to business. Canada's victory is different. It's not built on anybody else's defeat. When Canada wins, other nations can win too. They've created a model that elevates everyone it touches. That's not just rare in geopolitics. It's revolutionary. The world is finally waking up to what I've been watching for years. Canada isn't just a nice place to visit or a friendly neighbor to have. Canada is the future. They're showing the world what's possible when a nation combines strategic thinking with genuine values, when they choose long-term success over short-term gratification, when they build power through partnership rather than domination. This isn't luck. This isn't accident. This is the result of decades of disciplined execution, strategic patience, and the courage to stay true to their principles even when it wasn't popular. Canada has proven that you don't need to be the biggest, the loudest, or the most aggressive to win. You just need to be the smartest, the most consistent, and the most trustworthy. And let me tell you something else I've learned from decades of competition. When you're winning the right way, with honor and integrity, your victories compound. Each success makes the next one easier. Each partnership creates opportunities for more partnerships. Each achievement builds credibility for bigger achievements. Canada has entered this virtuous cycle of success, and it's accelerating. The numbers don't lie. The results speak for themselves. The future belongs to nations that can adapt, innovate, collaborate, and lead by example. And on every single one of these measures, Canada isn't just competing, they're dominating. And that, my friends, is how you win the ultimate game. Not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for generations to come. Canada has built something that will last. They've created a legacy of strength through wisdom, influence through integrity, and power through principle. The game isn't over, but Canada is so far ahead that victory is inevitable. And the most beautiful part, they're winning in a way that makes everyone else better too. That's not just strategy, that's mastery. That's championship thinking at the highest level. That's what happens when a nation understands that true champions don't just win, they show others how to win too. That's Canada. And that's why they're not just winning the game, they're redefining what victory looks like